Hollywood in the 1960s was a world of glamour, fame, and seemingly untouchable stars. But behind the polished red carpets and perfect publicity shots, many of the era's biggest names carried secrets that history often tried to bury. Some weren't just guilty of private prejudice, they used their wealth, power, and influence to push ideas and decisions that had very real consequences. What if the stars you admired most were hiding beliefs that could ruin their legacy forever? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 20 Hollywood icons from the so-called Golden Age, whose racism wasn't just whispered. It was written into the very system that made them famous. 1. John Wayne. Few figures towered over Hollywood like John Wayne. To many, he was the ultimate all-American cowboy. But his private life told a different story. In letters to segregationist politicians, Wayne argued that Black Americans weren't ready for full citizenship. His production company enforced a whites-only hiring policy that lasted well into the mid-1962. And his racism wasn't just rhetoric, it turned violent. In 1967, Wayne physically attacked a black journalist who dared to question his opposition to the Civil Rights Act. Studio records show that during the filming of The Alamo, he ordered Mexican heroes written out of the script, calling their inclusion greaser propaganda. Even in his will, Wayne tried to ensure no Black or Native American actor would ever portray him in a biopic. His prejudice wasn't passive, it was weaponized, financial, and brutal. But Wayne wasn't alone in using his power to shape Hollywood's culture of exclusion. 2. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford, remembered for her elegance and icy control, carried a darker side that stretched far beyond gossip columns. Crawford belonged to exclusive Hollywood social clubs that banned minorities outright. Studio board memos reveal she personally blocked the promotion of Black employees, effectively locking talented professionals out of opportunity. On set, her racism could be humiliating. During the filming of The Caretaker in 1963, she had a young Black extra removed simply for standing too close. Her contract sometimes included specific clauses banning Black actors from nearby dressing rooms. In private letters, Crawford even used slurs to describe Black colleagues, once writing that they belong in servile roles. She also used her influence to sabotage careers. Dorothy Dandridge, the first Black woman nominated for a Best Actress Oscar, saw her chances evaporate in part due to Crawford's pressure on MGM to pull support. Crawford wasn't just prejudiced, she actively built barriers. And while Crawford thrived on control, others masked their prejudice with carefully staged performances of allyship. 3. Charlton Heston. Charlton Heston, famous for roles in Ben-Hur and the Ten Commandments, later earned a reputation as a supporter of civil rights. But the truth is far more complicated. Studio documents show Heston's support was often a publicity move. He admitted in his own journals that attending civil rights marches was a way to please the press, not an act of conviction. Behind the scenes, he blocked Black actors from receiving larger roles. On Major Dundee, he demanded cuts to Brock Peters' character, claiming audiences wouldn't accept a Black man as his equal. Tax records revealed donations to segregationist politicians even while he publicly presented himself as a progressive voice. And in later years, his hypocrisy only deepened. As president of the NRA, Heston gave fiery speeches in majority Black cities, holding up rifles as though daring his audience to resist. The same man who once marched for justice also secretly bankrolled campaigns to keep segregation alive. But Heston's duplicity paled compared to the child star who grew into a diplomat with policies that shocked the world. 4. Shirley Temple Black. Everyone remembers Shirley Temple as America's sweetheart. But as an adult, her influence reached into politics, and with it came disturbing evidence of racist ideology. Declassified State Department documents reveal that during her diplomatic career, Temple worked to block African nations from gaining full UN recognition. As ambassador, She vetoed aid to famine-stricken countries, calling them wasteful causes. In private, she pushed for segregated school systems in developing nations. Even her work with UNICEF wasn't free from bias. Records show she diverted funds away from African children and toward European programs, claiming that money should be invested in civilization. Her racism wasn't a relic of childhood ignorance, it was institutionalized in her role as a policymaker. And those decisions had life or death consequences. But Temple wasn't the only one whose influence extended beyond the screen. 5. Bob Hope. Bob Hope was beloved for entertaining troops overseas, but military records reveal a troubling truth. His performances often reinforced segregation. Hope consistently demanded separate shows for black soldiers, refusing to perform for integrated audiences in Vietnam. Backstage, his humor turned cruel. Private tapes captured him mocking black stereotypes in offensive routines at exclusive parties. FBI files even suggest he paid off organizations to bury scandals about racist comments. Hope wasn't just a comedian. He was an entertainer who used his platform to uphold divisions at a time when soldiers desperately needed unity. And he wasn't the only one whose stage presence hid a much darker reality. 6. Judy Garland. Judy Garland, immortalized as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, left behind a legacy that's more troubling than most fans know. MGM payrolls show black dancers were paid up to 30% less on productions she headlined. Garland herself reportedly pushed to make the Wicked Witch resemble those Harlem Negroes, according to offensive studio notes. In private moments, Garland's words turned venomous. She once unleashed a racist tirade on Sammy Davis Jr., and she refused to perform until black audience members were moved from the front rows. Even late in her life, she was arrested after screaming slurs at Asian police officers. Behind her fragile, tragic public image was a streak of bigotry that damaged countless careers and lives. And while Garland's fame protected her, other stars cloaked their racism under the guise of being progressive. 7. Kirk Douglas. Kirk Douglas is often praised for breaking the Hollywood blacklist by giving writer Dalton Trumbo credit on Spartacus. But his record isn't nearly as clean when it comes to race. Douglas clashed with co-star Woody Strode, insisting his name appears smaller in the credits and blocking his character from having a heroic send-off. In private, Douglas referred to civil rights marches as a circus. He secretly funded segregationist politicians while publicly presenting himself as a liberal voice. His production company employed no black directors or writers for years. Douglas wasn't just complicit, he actively ensured Hollywood's racial hierarchy stayed intact. And if Douglas embodied hypocrisy, Frank Sinatra showed how charm could cover cruelty. 8. Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra built his brand as a rebel and, at times, a progressive voice against segregation. But newly uncovered hotel contracts show his venues banned black headliners outright. Staff memoirs recall how Sinatra belittled black employees behind closed doors. Perhaps most shocking was a 1965 incident where Sinatra physically assaulted a black photographer while spewing slurs, an event documented in a police report. For all his public stances, Sinatra's private actions reinforced the same old racial barriers he pretended to oppose. And if crooners could hide their prejudice behind smooth songs, comedians often wore theirs openly. 9. Jerry Lewis. Jerry Lewis, king of slapstick comedy, carried his racism into his work and his charity empire. Paramount archives show he vetoed black children from appearing in his telethon until 1968, arguing donors wouldn't respond well. Tapes from his nightclub shows capture him performing blackface routines that lasted more than 10 minutes. He paid black crew members half the wages of white staff, and in private writings, he used slurs casually, even attacking Richard Pryor as ungrateful. Lewis's racism wasn't an occasional slip. It was written into contracts, performances, and paychecks. But comedy wasn't the only arena where prejudice thrived. 10. Glenn Ford. Glenn Ford, tough guy, star of countless westerns, carried a reputation for cruelty that spilled into racism. He refused to work with black stuntmen, forced Mexican extras off his sets, and banned black guests from his home. Political donations reveal he supported segregationist campaigns and even funded vigilante groups patrolling the border. In one infamous case, he assaulted a Mexican extra simply for smelling like beans. Even in his will, he disinherited his biracial grandson, calling him a stain on the family name. Ford's racism wasn't subtle, it was venomous, violent, and unapologetic. And yet, he wasn't even the most extreme example on this list. 11. Richard Widmark. Known for playing intense villains, Richard Widmark brought a similar cruelty off-screen. He demanded contractual clauses preventing him from sharing scenes with black actors and abused Mexican staff at his home. He bankrolled extremist anti-integration groups and was overheard calling for violent crackdowns during the Watts riots. His personal letters revealed hatred not only for black leaders, but for the entire civil rights movement. Widmark didn't just reflect racism, he actively fueled it. And hypocrisy ran deep, even in stars celebrated as rebels or outsiders. 12. Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando was hailed as a Hollywood rebel who spoke up for Native Americans and civil rights. But his journals tell another story, privately dismissing Martin Luther King Jr. as a media creation. Financial records revealed donations to groups that fought interracial marriage laws, while studio memos show he sometimes refused to hand awards to black colleagues. Brando built his image as progressive, but behind closed doors, he reinforced the very hierarchies he claimed to despise. And if Brando's duplicity shocks you, wait until you hear how Hollywood's leading men treated love stories. 13. Rock Hudson. Rock Hudson was the poster boy for romance on screen, but studio contracts banned him from sharing romantic scenes with black actresses. His chauffeur recalled Hudson's constant use of slurs and demeaning language toward minorities. Politically, Hudson donated to segregationist politicians while cultivating a liberal public image. He wasn't just a Hollywood heartthrob, he was another barrier to progress. 14. Tony Curtis. Tony Curtis's charm couldn't cover his blatant racism. He refused to share scenes with black actors in Spartacus, openly mocked Sidney Poitier, and voted for George Wallace, one of America's most infamous segregationists. Curtis wasn't ashamed of his prejudice, he flaunted it. 15. Natalie Wood. Natalie Wood, remembered for her innocence, wasn't free from racism either. She routinely fired black stand-ins and once accused a black employee of theft with no evidence, nearly ruining his career. On set, she referred to Puerto Rican co-stars with slurs that shocked even her colleagues. 16. Steve McQueen. Steve McQueen, Hollywood's king of cool, fought tooth and nail against the Civil Rights Act, seeing equality as a threat to Hollywood's white dominance. FBI files revealed he informed on black activists, essentially weaponizing his fame against civil rights progress. 17. Paul Newman. Paul Newman's blue eyes made him a beloved figure, but his actions told a darker story. Records from his racing team show he banned black drivers until 1969. His diaries reduced legendary black athletes to racist stereotypes. He opposed school integration in Connecticut, hiding behind polished PR while enforcing systemic exclusion. 18. Audrey Hepburn. Audrey Hepburn, celebrated for elegance and humanitarianism, also carried a racist undercurrent. Paramount files show she refused to work with black instructors during My Fair Lady. UNICEF memos reveal she vetoed ads featuring black children, claiming they wouldn't resonate with donors. Her grace and compassion had limits, and those limits reinforced racial bias. 19. James Stewart. James Stewart embodied America's wholesome everyman, but in reality, he fought to keep black extras in the background of his films, donated to segregationist campaigns, and kept segregated housing on his ranch well into the late 1962. His legacy as the perfect neighbor masked a man who worked hard to keep neighbors segregated. 20. Lee Marvin. Lee Marvin, known for his tough guy roles, carried that aggression into racist tirades. He openly performed offensive routines at rap parties, donated to extremist groups, and was overheard saying the Watts riot should be mowed down by the National Guard. FBI files link him to donations to the American Nazi Party under pseudonyms. Marvin's off-screen persona wasn't just flawed, it was venomous. Conclusion: the golden age of Hollywood wasn't golden for everyone. These stars shaped culture, politics, and entertainment, while carrying beliefs that excluded, demeaned, and harmed countless people. Their legacies remind us that fame can hide darkness, and admiration often comes with blind spots. So, the question is, when we celebrate Hollywood's past, are we celebrating the glamour, or are we ignoring the prejudice built into its foundations? Which of these revelations shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that reveal the side of Hollywood history no one wanted you to see.